That is very, very possible and very, very easy to do. So make sure you're not just firing these willy-nilly, that you have a good idea of the password policy, the lockout policy, etc. That'll really help you when you do these attacks. But you just want to do these kind of 1 or 2 at a time, wait a few hours, fire another 1 or 2 at a time, and you should be good to go. Okay, so same deal here. We could fire this and we could just say, I'll just say password 123, and we'll just switch this to sniper here. And if we come to the payloads, you can see it just kept the emails. There is no payload 2 anymore. So what this would do if we hit start attack is it would start firing this against this email address with a password of 123. And then this one with this email address with the password of 123. It would just go down the list. And that's all password spraying is. But the feature that I'm showing you here between credential stuffing and password spraying is by far the most common way that we get in on external assessments. Way, way more than you're ever going to see just an exploit out in the wild, where you're going to see this most likely. And second, you're probably going to see something like default credentials. So if you see a login page, always check default credentials because you never know. You're likely not going to see an exploit out there because the chances are, one, is that if you see an exploit like that out there, who knows who else has seen that already? What kind of bad actors? Because bad actors are scanning the internet all the time for these sorts of things. And if they're seeing it, then guess what? Or if you're seeing it, then guess what? They're probably have already seen it as well. So that's a bad situation. Two, you got to think of protection, and clients, just think of clients like a house. When you talk about the external of your house, your external, your doors have really good locks on them. You might have 2 locks on your door. You might have good lighting, all this other stuff, right? Like to try to keep bad guys out. But on the inside, some of your doors probably don't even lock. And that's really how you can treat an external assessment. The clients do a really good job of, buffing up their external. But when it comes to the internal, it's not usually as good. So same thing with physical assessments as well. You gotta get inside. Once you're inside, it's kind of easy breezy for the most part. So take that lesson away. If anything you take from the course, again, at least for the external side, take away that enumeration and information gathering is super important because you want to get to this stage here where you are doing these credential stuffing attacks, and you can use Burp Suite for it. This is my favorite go-to. There's other methods as well, but it's so easy just to grab any different website and just, intercept the proxy, send it to intruder, make one modification and fire it off. So super, super simple. This is something you will come up in an interview as well. So make sure you're very aware of it and make sure you watch this again if you need to understand the concepts. So from here, we're going to go ahead and take a quick look at our notes in the next video, just kind of where I want you to be with your notes. And then we're going to get into what I call that mid-course capstone, where I'm going to show you a bunch of different hacks and just my thought process and theories and thinking when I go into a scan and looking at results. And just so you can kind of get into the mind of an attacker and how we think. And then we'll start moving on to exploit development and my favorite, the Active Directory exploitation. So I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Let's briefly cover our notes so far. So we have covered a little bit of this, right? We covered the fact that we have our nmap in here and what we saw in port 22, port 80, etc. And we had a couple of findings from before. We had default web page on Apache, and we had this information disclosure as well. Now we've done some exploiting. So I've gone ahead and just put in here, I put the SMB exploit. So I put an example of what it looks like when we run it. And you could see that the who am I and the host name's in there. And then I've got the IP address. This is just for my notes. You can make this as detailed as you want, by the way. You could say, hey, I ran this at this specific time, and I ran it against this host, and here was the attack I ran, etc. And we'll get more into what your report should look like, but as long as you know, at least for me, as long as I know where I have a screenshot of proof that I did it, and I have the IP address that I ran it against, that's pretty much enough. I can remember the rest and then type out the report. And same here with the mod SSL attack on port 80 and 443. And I don't have a copy of it right now, but the shadow file, we did uncover the shadow file as being a root user. So this is just notes for us. Perhaps we could use the shadow file information and crack the passwords, or we could go on and try to pass the password or pass the hash around, which we'll get to in later videos. And another thing that I added in here too was undetected malicious activity. So this is something that you're going to see on a report, and we talked about in the brute forcing video, where if we're doing any kind of brute forcing, we're doing it not only to see if we can get in with a bad password, but to see if the client catches us. So in this example, I'm just going to say, hey, they didn't catch us. Here's an example of what we did. Also scanning in there as well. If they're not seeing a scan, that's something that we're going to report back. So this would be typically a low finding. These would also be low findings. Anytime we get access to a machine, this is obviously a critical finding. So we just want to keep note of, what kind of things we're finding, take good pictures, etc. So I'm hoping that you are getting the gist now of what your notes should look like. Again, make these your own, however it feels good to you. This is just how I kind of do it. I don't have to put a ton of information in there for me to remember, as long as I have my screenshots, which are most important because that's your proof that you were actually there and you did it. Otherwise, it's just he said, she said kind of thing. So that is it for this video. That is it for this section. Congratulations again for making it this far. Now we're going to move into some of the fun stuff where we get to look at a bunch of different attacks and gradually just get a little bit more complex and learn some new things along the way. And I like to call this a capstone because we're capping off where all the things we learned so far, and we're going to actually build upon it too. You're going to learn a bunch of new little techniques as we do this little mid-course capstone. And then we're going to get into really fun stuff once we get into Active Directory. I'm really excited for that. So I will catch you over in the next section. Welcome to the course capstone. This is the 2021 edition of the course capstone, and we'll get into the old capstone, the new capstone, and what the differences are. But the course capstone is meant to challenge you and test your skills and knowledge up to what you've learned so far. Now, not everything is cut and dry. These boxes are not meant to be particularly easy. They're actually meant to be learning experiences. So what that means is you are welcome to go through these machines on your own, give them a try. I realize that we have not talked whatsoever about privilege escalation. We have not talked about a lot of the tools that you're going to see, and this is by design. Hacking is not going to be able to show you, a course on hacking is not going to be able to show you everything, but you're going to get to pick up some ideas and a little bit of Googling and a little bit of frustration and really just getting in there, getting your hands dirty and seeing what you can come up with. So I encourage you to try these on your own in the order that they're listed. However, if you want to just watch and follow along, that's absolutely okay as well. Now, I mentioned privilege escalation, but we'll talk about that here in a second. I want to show you the old course capstone and where the new course capstone is. So I have uploaded the new course capstone. This is not all the machines yet. This is just the ones that I started uploading. All you gotta do is go in here and download these machines. You can run them with VMware or VirtualBox. I've got setup instructions for a couple of the machines. Once you've seen one Windows or one Linux, you can see them all and how to download them and run them. So that's pretty straightforward. The link will be provided in the resources or below the video, depending on what platform you're on. Now, the old capstone. Here's the old capstone. I have not pushed the new update yet, so this is what the old capstone looks like. You could see there were 10 boxes. There were 5 hours of material, or was 5 hours of material. The issue with the old capstone was that we were relying on a platform called Hack the Box. Hack the Box was a paid subscription platform. It cost anywhere from $10 to $15 a month. I'm not sure exactly of the true cost, but I realize not everybody can pay additional funds to go and use this platform to walk through these machines. So what we have done is we have made these machines available via YouTube. So I'm going to put this down below as well, but there is a series originally released called Pen Testing for Noobs. If you look, all 10 of those machines are going to be here as well. So you're welcome to come to the YouTube channel and watch these videos. If you want extra content, extra walkthroughs, and more of the practice and more of the capstone, you're welcome to go sign up for Hack the Box, do all that. But we are removing that dependency from the course. Now, these machines are going to require what is called privilege escalation. We are going to walk through privilege escalation. What I mean by that is, I mean that we are looking at a box. When we land on the machine, we are not root or we are not system on that machine. We are a low-level user. We have low privileges, and we need to escalate our privileges to the highest level that we can. So all of these machines, except for one at the time of this recording, are going to have some sort of privilege escalation involved. Now you're going to get to see some cool tooling, some different techniques and tactics, but it's not going to go into super depth on this. There are courses out there that we have created. We have two here, the Windows privilege escalation for beginners and Linux privilege escalation for beginners if you are on Udemy. If you are on the Academy, same concept, Windows and Linux, just depending on the platform you're on and which one you prefer. So if you're interested in going after any sort of certifications, if you're interested in doing any sort of capture the flag or getting better at just escalation in general, highly recommend these courses. If you're looking to stay kind of on that practical path, then these aren't really necessary. It's really based on chasing certifications in the hacking realm, like your OSCP or some of the other certifications that might be out there. They use a lot of privilege escalation to test on. But again, it's not really on the practical side of things. So depending on what your motivations are and reasoning, however, we are going to show them in this course only because they are a good introduction to hacking. It's good to see the other side. It's good to see some of the exploits that are out there, some of the thought processes that are out there. And then once we get into the Active Directory section, it'll really take off from a practical standpoint, and we're really going to start hacking like we are hacking a real network, and it's going to get really fun. It's my favorite section in the whole course. So with that being said, go through the courses again in order as you see them. So however you see them in the list, go ahead and go through them. We're going to add more courses over time. As of right now, the dependency is that you download these and install these for your lab. Again, there will be instructions for those. In later attempts, we are hoping to offload these to an online lab. Unfortunately, we won't be able to do that with Udemy, but with the Academy platform, we should be able to do that. So we're working on getting that. But for now, the Google Drive link that you see attached to the introduction video, this video, will have all the files that you need to download in order to complete this section. So with that being said, go ahead and complete the next box. I'll see you in the next video, and hopefully you rooted it. So before we begin the capstone, I want to show you how to import a machine. And I'm going to show you, starting with Blue, how to import Blue, which is a Windows machine. And then we're going to go ahead and import a Linux machine in a later video. So that way you should know how to do both, though the process is exactly the same. So for Blue, what we're going to do is we're going to come into VMware here, and I'm going to show you VirtualBox as well. We're going to go open virtual machine, and you're just going to select the file that should be available to you here, which is Blue. I've already done that through the magic of editing, so it's already here, and I'm just going to go up here and show you that. We'll get to settings here in a second. For VirtualBox, same exact process. I'm going to go ahead and just go to import. I'm just going to paste the location in here. You can also use this to go find your file. And I'm going to hit next and import. Okay, and it should start importing this file. So here we go, it's importing. It'll take 50 seconds, that's fine. Gives me time to talk about the settings. So you can see here that we are in bridged mode. Okay, we don't want to be in bridge mode. Let's go ahead and edit this. Go to bridged, and we're going to turn this into actually just NAT. Now you can choose how much memory you want to use here. Mine's set to 4 gigs, that's fine. I've got a lot of RAM. If you do not, then go ahead and maybe turn this down to 2 gigs would be absolutely fine. Okay, so I'm going to hit OK here. Now, I'm going to power on this virtual machine, and then we're going to wait for the other one to finish importing, which it has. So here, while we're waiting on this, go ahead and go to Settings, and you're going to want to do the same thing. So network, no bridge, don't do bridge. We're going to do NAT, okay? And then we're going to just enable the network adapter here. So you should have your NAT network set up. Remember that when you did that originally with our settings. If you need to, you can go back to Tools, you can go to Preferences, come in your network, make sure your NAT network is set up. Anyway, come in here, you can go to your settings, and again, make sure that this is on NAT. So, or NAT network, I apologize. NAT network right here, okay? And then I'm gonna hit okay. And then all you need to do is power this on. I'm gonna show you with the virtual or the VMware, it's gonna be the same process. Now, you can log in as the administrator. You're gonna get credentials for every box. That is for the sole purpose that you can access the IP configuration and find the IP of this machine. Okay, just to make it a little bit easier. So there will be an accounts file in here, and here you can see the administrator password is password456 exclamation. So we're just going to do that. And we're going to make sure that this box is online and that we can communicate. So I'm going to quickly go to command, and you can install VMware tools if you want, make this pretty, all that jazz. I'm not going to do that here. I'm just going to quickly figure out what's what. You can see 192.168.138.135. I'm going to come over to Kali Linux. I've got a scan that we did for 134 up, but that's okay. I'm just going to ping 192.168.138.135. Okay, and you can see I'm getting a response back. And that's it. You need to make sure that you can communicate with your machine. So if you're running VirtualBox, make sure you spin it up, you log in, you figure out what it is that your IP address is, and go from there. Very, very straightforward. So that is it for this video. Go ahead and attempt to attack Blue. See if you can figure out what the deal is and where you can go and how you can exploit it. And meet me in the next video once you've attempted it to see if you were able to successfully root or system this machine. Thank you. So let's start by taking a look at our Nmap scan. Now, the IP address I got was 192.168.138.135, and not a lot of ports came back. So we got 445 back, and we can scroll through, get a little bit of information, like we see a NetBIOS name on this machine. We see that it's running Windows 7 Ultimate 7601 Service Pack 1. Doesn't appear to be part of a domain, just a work group. Same thing, work group, authentication level user. And really there's nothing here that is a big indication as to what this could be. So when we have this, as we discussed before, when we're looking at SMB specific vulnerabilities, because that would be my guess here, would be the vulnerability would be SMB related. We need to enumerate SMB in one of two ways, really. The first of that being, well, can we search based on version information that we see here? Can we search on this and see if there's anything vulnerable that could be there? Second of all, if we can't find anything right off the bat for this, maybe then we can go and use something like SMB client, do some enumeration. Maybe there's a null session we can connect to. Maybe there's a file or something, some sort of information with a username or password or something along those lines that gets us into this machine. Otherwise, we're pretty much stuck with version information. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and just copy this. And there's a reason that this is the first machine in our run through of the capstone, because this is the easiest, or should be the easiest. So we're going to go ahead and go out to Firefox, and I'm just going to go google.com. Come in here, we're going to search for this, and we're going to search for exploit. It already knows me. And we can look through some of these and see if there's anything here that really stands out. First thing for me, we've got a few. We got one here, one here. These just kind of say, they don't necessarily say what they are, so we might need to click into them. MS17010 keeps popping up quite a bit. Let's see if it tells us anything here about architecture. Really doesn't, just shows up as this. So we'll have to do some reading into this. This is a local privilege escalation. Doesn't really help us because we're not doing privilege escalation at this point. We're just looking to see if we can even get on this machine. Okay, this shows us, hey, MS17010. This is a exploit for it, written in Python, it looks like. And it says, hey, okay, this could be our target. So we're going to take two different paths here. We're going to look at it first in Metasploit, and then we're going to take it from a manual path, and we're going to see if this is indeed what we're after. So let's go ahead and just go to MSF console. And yours might look a little bit different than mine, depending on what version of Kali you're on. but the process should be the same. I'm on MSF5. So we're going to go ahead and just search eternal blue. And I do know recently they combined all the eternal blues into one. So again, yours might be a little bit different than mine, but it should be the same process or concept. Now, the first thing we want to do is we want to look up this SMB scanner, right? We want to do an auxiliary. Our auxiliary modules are going to tell us what is there. It's going to be a check. It's not going to be so much an attack. It's more of scanning than anything else. There are some attacks in auxiliary modules, but they're not full on exploitation. So let's go ahead and just say use one. And we're going to go options in here. And all it's going to do for us is it's going to come in here. We're going to provide it with an rhost. We're going to run it, and it's going to provide a check. Okay, so we can just say set rhost to 192.168.138.135, whatever your IP address is. And then I'm going to say run. And it says host is likely vulnerable to MS17010. Okay, there's a second way to do this. So let's go ahead and just search eternal blue again. You can also search MS17-010 or however you want to do this. It should all show up. I'm going to use this number 3 here, the eternal blue one. We don't know. We do know that we're on Windows 7, so the Windows 8 won't work for us. And PS exec we could run, but I'm going to go ahead and just use the one that is most popular and works usually out of the box. So I'm going to go ahead and just say use 3 and type in options. And in here, we have a verify option, which means we should have a check option here. So I'm going to again just say set rhost. I'm going to show you the check feature. 138.135. Okay. And then I'm going to say check. All right. And so check did exactly what the auxiliary module did for us. It says, hey, it's vulnerable. Okay. Or likely vulnerable. So what we need to do is we need to set a payload here. Now, something that you might not know yet at this point is that payloads are by default, they are set to 32-bit, at least in this example, because there could be a 32-bit exploit in here. Actually, this says 64-bit, so I could be lying to you. Some payloads are set to a 32-bit to start. Because we know that this is a 64-bit machine, or at least should be, given that it's enterprise, we're going to go ahead and set this to 64 bits just to be safe. So this is a practice that I take on if I know the architecture of the machine. I'm going to go in here and set my payload for myself. Now this should be 64-bit, but just to be safe, we're going to type in Windows and hit Tab. Because it only auto-completes to 64-bit, this is perfect. Now, I think where my mind was going is that I want this to be a Meterpreter shell, and I don't know if it defaults to Meterpreter. It might default to a reverse TCP of some sort. So we're going to go ahead and use a Meterpreter shell because we want a nice interface to have. So I'm going to go ahead and set that options one time, and I'm going to look at the lhost here, and we could just say set lhost over to, we could just call it ETH0, or you could set your IP address in here. Again, you can IPA or ifconfig, and whatever your IP address is, I'm running on ETH0, so whatever you choose, you could place here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. Now, while this runs, this might not work on the first go. It might not work on the first few goes. This is going to try going through what are called different sets of grooms on here. And it looks like it worked right away. But sometimes this doesn't work right away. And if yours doesn't work right away, that's okay. It might take a few attempts through this first process, and you might have to hit run a few times for this to go. Now, I have chosen using blue or eternal blue for this course because it's so relevant. This is a 4-year-old exploit now. And I see it on so many internal penetration tests. It's not even funny. Like, I wish it would just go away, but it is this easy to run and just get on a machine and gain access. And it's incredibly easy and incredibly prominent in environments. Think about environments where they have systems running that they can't update or do anything with, and you have this, or they just have poor patch management and you have this. It's so easy to get on a machine, and then you come in here and you say hash dump, and you dump out the hash. And now we've got administrator hash. We can go try to crack that. We can do pass the hash, which we're not there yet. We're going to get there in the Active Directory section. You're going to see what the differences are on this kind of stuff. But you can utilize these hashes to our advantage, and we're going to play around with that a little bit later in the course. So with that being said, this is something that you will likely see if you do become a pen tester. You'll see this in an environment, and it is really this easy to get into a machine like this. So we have used this now to come through here and gain access. We're going to go ahead and go back, and we're going to try doing it again, but we're going to do it through through a manual method. So I'm going to open up a new tab. All right, and we're going to come in here, and I'm going to search Google. Now, if we want to go look for manual methods of exploiting a system, we're likely going to use GitHub, perhaps exploit database. Now, this exploit database one, I'm not going to use only because it gets a little tricky with Eternal Blue. There's a few things that we have to do. I don't believe this one is just one that runs right out of the box. It has a little bit more information here than what's leading on. Now, we might need to reboot this machine, by the way. We'll give it a go and see if it works. It might not work out of the box because we've already exploited the system, but we'll try it anyway. So what we might want to do is something like Eternal Blue, and we might want to say GitHub. Okay, and we can come through here and look through different ones. I like to open a few, and I like to look at them and read the amount of stars that they have, read the descriptions that they have, detailed walkthroughs. You know, all of these have decent stars. This one doesn't have a great walkthrough. This one has a very good kind of detailed walkthrough, has video tutorials, has a decent amount of stars, and I honestly like it. So we're going to go ahead and just get the auto blue one from Endgame. So go ahead and find that and get to this. We're going to go ahead and copy this code. And there have been commits since 2021. So that's great. There's recent commits to this, which is awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and go into, I'm going to cd into opt, and I'm going to git clone this. And that's not what I should have been copying. Should have copied this, but we'll try it one more time. And paste here. All right. And then I'm going to cd into AutoBlue, and it gave instructions in here somewhere about how to install this. Let's go to installation, pip install requirements for Python 3, which we should be on at this point. So we're going to do pip install -r requirements, just like that. Let that install. Looks like everything is satisfied or installed, so that's good. From here, we're going to go ahead and do the usage. Now, there was a checker in here, so we can run Python with the checker. So I don't know, it says Python 2, so let's go ahead and run Python 2 with it. It could be Python 3 too, so we might run into an issue. Checker.py 192.168.138.135. Target is not patched. Testing name pipes. Okay, so this is something that I actually use on an assessment, regardless if it's this or the Metasploit version. I will take a screenshot of this. There are reasons sometimes where we won't run the exploit. If the environment has critical machines running, for example, like in a hospital, I might not run this exploit because this can take down a machine. And if I don't know what machine I'm taking down, who knows in a hospital, right? You don't want to make that mistake. So it's always better to play it on the safe side when we're running these exploits. If you don't know, you can always ask your client, say, hey, I've got this machine, here's the IP address, I want to run this exploit, is that okay? And get permission first. Now, there's a lot of ways, which you'll see when we get into the Active Directory exploitation part of the course, that we can compromise a domain and we can run all kinds of exploitation, own the whole domain controller, and not worry about tipping over the server by any means. This can tip over a server, so you want to be safe with these kinds of things. So with that said, I'm going to show you how to run this manually, but it's going to tip your box over. I'm going to give the secret away. It's going to tip your box over, and this is going to be the lesson learned from running this exploit. I'm going to show you the proper way to do it manually. With the version we have, it's not super easy to get a shell from the manual method. We could go around and play around and find one that works, but I'm going to show you this from here's how you would run it manually, but also here's the dangers of running this in an environment. And this is a perfect box to show you why we don't go run remote code execution on machines in an environment, because this can take down a machine. So let's go ahead and run through the process. I'm going to show you the process, and then we're going